All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jamin Shively, broadcasting from Seattle, Washington, and I'm here with my colleague and co-host, Michael.
Hello, good to be with you, Jamin, here in the south of France.
Wonderful. Great to see you, Michael. And how are you doing out there? How's everything going?
Oh, wonderful. Weather's pleasant, and the setting couldn't be more perfect.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, we're here to talk about the vision and mission of ICCI. You know, what is our big idea of ICCI? And so, Michael, I invite us to just go back and forth, kind of improv style. Let's just co-create this this video for everyone. Go ahead and jump in, or should I kick it off?
Kick it off.
All right. So the big idea of ICCI that we have is that it become a federation of sorts, right? A conference in the two meanings of conference in terms of people coming together, but it's also in the sense of an organization that is ongoing, that has a mission to fulfill. And in this case, that mission would be the nucleus of this federation of different implementations of collective intelligence, different communities that constitute collective intelligence. And these communities can be overlapping. In fact, that's kind of the whole point, is to get the lily pads to connect, right? And really form one global collective intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's in the nature of collective intelligence itself, in fact, to utilize, all intelligence, right? And therefore, if there is any form of CI out there, it's going to be looking for itself, right? It's kind of like Earthlings looking for life on another planet, right? It's just in their nature to seek out its own. And just to underscore the twin definition of the word conference that we're utilizing here, it's a conference in the more obvious sense of, say, an academic conference, right?
Yeah.
But then it's also a conference in the sense of, say, the National Football Conference, right? The NFC, or the American Football Conference, right?
Yeah.
It's an organization. Therefore, it's a conference that, is in person, online, but it's also ongoing in the form of an organization of CI. We can think of it almost as a form of meta CI. But as I see it, CI is CI, right? It's in its very nature to, like the lily pad metaphor, right? To connect.
Yeah. Exactly. That is so totally true. And then at the same time, we're kind of identifying what really distinguishes ICCI. What is ICCI all about? What is fundamentally unique about ICCI? So
what is ICCI, Jamin?
The International Conference on Collective Intelligence.
There it is.
Okay, thank you. Very important. So one of the main pillars is creating this federation, creating this union, uniting the different.
It's like a League of Nations.
It's like a League of Nations. It's a League of Collective Intelligences.
Right, the International Conference, right, on Collective Intelligence.
Exactly.
ICCI.
Exactly. And so what I wanted to then say is to build on that. I would say, let's talk about, okay, we get everyone together, but to what aim, to what purpose? And in fact, that needs to be clear before we can do any uniting at all. So what is the purpose? So the purpose is to unite these various communities, collective intelligences, around the unifying aim or goal of saving our planet and our species from the ongoing destruction that we have collectively been causing, and to orchestrate a new course, a new trajectory, if you will, for our planet. And, not in the Newtonian Galilean sense of trajectory, but in the sense of the spiritual, cultural, economic trajectory.
And yet it does represent a certain kind of Copernican revolution, right? Because we're reorienting ourselves from the individual being the focus, right? The earth is at the center, you know, and the universe revolves around us.
Oh my goodness.
To this sense of the collective center, right? So that we become, in essence, de-centered parts of a greater whole.
Oh my goodness. That is so brilliant, Michael.
CI in action.
That is so brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. No, this is collective intelligence in action. Absolutely. So, but how do you like them Washington State apples? In terms of, you know, this is what we're uniting the different collective intelligences around: saving our planet and saving our species from the ongoing destruction that we've been causing to it, collectively been causing. You could call it through our collective stupidity. So what we're essentially, you know, offering here is an organized, open source community and platform for uniting all the different collective intelligences to bring about a phase transition from collective stupidity, boom, to real, true collective intelligence, global collective intelligence, radical collective intelligence. Call it what you will. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that we do it.
Praxis makes perfect.
Well, there we've got that's a whole conversation in itself. So let's do a conversation on praxis precisely. But bottom line, let's get it on. Let's do it. And of course, what we're doing right now is part of the let's do it. And you know, that's the communication part. But the communication part is only one part. In fact, we were talking a bit earlier about, you know, what are the set of all the parts that are involved. So we're about 8 minutes in, but I think this is pretty fundamental. So shall we go straight to, like, you know, what we are envisioning in terms of what ICCI can then actually begin to co-create with all these, with the whole Grand Federation, or am I skipping over anything important?
No. This is the Babe Ruth moment right now. You're pointing your bat to the stands.
All right, thank you, Michael. So we were just kind of brainstorming about what some of these different elements could include. And so we've talked about the grand sort of unifying aim, which is, and we have a name for this, we call it a whole world. And the 5-minute Hungerless Games video does a great job of kind of painting a picture of that. So if that's where we want to get to, and look, that needs to be fleshed out in detail, right? Absolutely. I mean, we're not pretending to have a perfectly fleshed out, detailed picture of what a whole world would look like.
Yeah. And you can also watch that on the video on the topic of whole world, a teleological taxonomy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. That's right. And that's a whole separate conversation. So we're launching all these different conversations. We use the skyscraper analogy, and we'll build on that later. Basically, each new story that you build on top of what came before, and it's all recorded. So you can take the elevator down to whatever story and press play and watch the conversation.
And right now, we're at such a fundamental level right now. We're not even at ground level. We're like, you know, way below ground zero.
Interesting. Yeah. Because we're kind of building out the foundations.
Exactly.
The foundations of this. So, so what are some of the elements? So we've talked about, one is the aim. Another is this concept of a federation of collective intelligence. This is a global collective intelligence. Anything else is really kind of a contradiction in terms. I mean, it's just the obvious, destination. It's the destiny of collective intelligence to unify and unite. Just like it's the destiny of human intelligence to connect with alien intelligence through SETI and whatnot. But then that was your point, and so well stated. So, so we have AIM, we have global CI, we have strategy is a key part of this whole thing, and that's part of what we're fleshing out now. But we'll talk more about that. And a great example of a global holistic strategy is precisely the Hungerless Games strategy. And you can learn more about that on the Hungerless Games page on Radish. And then that strategy in turn is deeply connected to various platforms and programs that really make this whole thing operational, right? I mean, it's one thing to come together and form this collective intelligence and come up with a whole bunch of ideas, right? It's another thing to actually root down and implement them in the real world. And so the Hungerless Games strategy can be thought of sort of as an orchestration function, orchestrating these various different platforms and programs that exist in the real world, like, for example, the bifurcating economic standard of CCC is the standard which makes operational this vision for a new mode of production for the global economy, which is in alignment with taking us towards the aim of a whole world, right? As opposed to being diametrically opposed, which is what the current mode of production is doing. It's destroying our planet and our species.
Yeah, and I think the the greater point here really is that these are products that CI is producing now in real time as we speak, right? Somebody else will come to this from another point of view, right? And there'll be parallax where they say, oh, okay, the Hungerless Games. What do you mean by that? And there'll be a sort of synthesis, let's say, between what we're doing with the Hungerless Games, right? It's a platform program, etc. CCC,
yeah,
right? Which is it's one of the earliest products of CI, at least of radical collective intelligence, which is the certification for compassionate companies, right? What does it mean to be a compassionate company? What's the point of that? Well, frankly, it's to transform the mode of production, right? Or in other words, the form of economy.
Yes.
But as you alluded to, the global holistic model, again, another product of CI, right?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Here, we have various optimization layers, right? Different dimensions and levels, but we're able to measure, and through a process of trial and error, come up with a strategy that's based in reality.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where we need the various CIs, to come together. In a sense, that's where they do come together to bring about that parallax, which provides, the depth perception needed to really root down and solve the world's problems.
Yes. Yep.
So this whole notion of a conference, right, being at once an event that happens on a certain date in a certain place.
Yeah.
Right. It's whether in person or online, it's also ongoing because it's a conference in the sense of an organization. And that's what we're building here. We're just simply saying, hey, look, the CI is happening. And we're hoping, and I would say that it's more than a hope, that CI will seek out its own, come together and create through ICCI, the International Conference on Collective Intelligence, what we need, the intelligence we need collectively to solve the world's problems.
Yes, exactly. And what's really cool is that this global collective intelligence will be so intelligent, truly intelligent, that it will be able to come up with all kinds of platforms and interfaces and databases and search algorithms and connection algorithms and, communication media.
It's a higher form of intelligence.
Exactly, it's a higher form of intelligence, and but here's a really cool virtuous cycle. That higher form of intelligence, in turn, will come up with amazing tools and platforms to facilitate collective intelligence, and then those can be adopted by the different collective intelligences that make up the Federation in the process of it, and that can be part of the unification process. Is hey, we're all using the same platforms and tools. And it's as easy for me to send an email internally within General Motors as it is for me to send one to somebody operating in Sony, Japan. You know, that's where the federation, we have the, I'm just using a metaphor of email, but we come up with these common platforms and common tools, which in turn are incredibly advanced and effective at achieving the vision of collective intelligence, that which by now has been articulated very well in a number of books and papers. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of envisioning. What we're doing is putting forth our own vision of a whole world, saving the world and saving humanity, which is where a lot of these collective intelligences are focused anyway.
Yeah, by their very nature.
Exactly.
Inevitably.
And, you know, we're essentially, we're proclaiming, you know, the essentially obvious. I mean, doesn't this fall in the category of obvious, or you know, one might say not obvious, but inevitable. But either way.
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah.
In hindsight, it is just screamingly obvious.
Yeah, but because of the exponential nature of what we're doing, right? As you know, we're rounding the hockey stick. It's one of those things where, you know, you look around and you see, oh, here's a CI platform here, there's a program there, right? Yeah. But as these are built out, they're going to interconnect because an individual collective intelligence is an oxymoron. Yeah, it's a contradiction in terms.
Exactly. And in fact, some of the most successful implementations of collective intelligence have precisely been those that have been donated for free to the world and said, world, just use us, we're yours. Classic examples, Wikipedia and Google. Two classic examples of collective intelligence that are free to the world, and everyone, and they just become these massive growing platforms. So,
but this one is laser focused on a whole world.
Exactly.
Right? It's not just organizing the world's information, as important as that is, as fundamental as that may be, right? To what we're now doing.
Yeah.
But this has a telos, and to your point, Jamin, CIs everywhere who, you know, assume the name of CI are doing exactly that. So let's get it on and get together, right? So that we can move onwards and upwards and.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's a few more kind of vital points I want to flesh out here so that this video can actually be whole. And Michael, I know you've got an engagement that you need to get to. So you feel free to drop out when you need to. Okay, I just want to give you that freedom. I don't want to have a
Well, why don't I drop off now, and then you can actually just go through, take the time that you need, and delineate.
Agreed.
Say no more. And that way it won't just, you know. So thank you, Jamin, and I look forward to you know, rooting down with you here in the near future. And thank you for our viewership and all those who are interested in the International Conference on Collective Intelligence, ICCI.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael. Great work today. Oh my goodness, great work. And today's not over. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Thanks. All right. Arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So continuing here, just me, Jamin Shively, your host. You see how it suddenly gets a little bit dumbed down when we lose Michael, but I mean, that's the nature of collective intelligence. It's just this is a whole different modality of communication. Me just, you know, monologuing versus the co-creative collective intelligence dialogue. But anyway, I want to talk about some of the other, you know, kind of key components that we're visualizing here. Let me create a little bit of a context for this. So, you know, one thing is the grand vision, and as grand as it is and as great as it is, you know, it's just a vision until something actually gets done, until people actually get together and start doing something. So, and also I know from experience that you're going to get a lot more people's attention, engagement, and commitment if you're actually doing something physical in the real world, as opposed to talking about something or writing up some cool software and showing it, you know, people like to people like to see action in the real world. And so that's part of the reason that we have formed the tight partnership that we have with a couple of organizations that I'll talk about next, which are also co-sponsors of ICCI, and that is Community Cafes and Sato Hemp. We talk about each of these extensively in separate videos. So I won't go into the details now, only to point out that through the Hungerless Games strategy, CCC companies such as Sato Hemp, which is the pioneer, the leader, and that's one of the kind of the key things that we need, that whole sector of the economy, the compassionate economy, contributes 100% of its profits to the permanent eradication of world hunger. And for those who might question how that might actually be feasible, I was looking to see if I had a bottle of Newman's Own here, but look at any Newman's Own label, all profits to charity, totally feasible. So all the profits from the compassion, it's totally feasible to build successful, thriving, profitable, multi-hundred-million-dollar companies like Newman's Own and give all profits to charity. Totally doable. But all those profits then go to fund programs such as the community cafes for the permanent eradication of world hunger. And so whereas, and here we have a really interesting dialectic, because we have the overarching aim of a whole world, saving our planet and our species, and all species, in fact, that possibly can be saved at this point. That's the overarching aim. But along the way, we have some key milestones, one of which is the permanent eradication of world hunger. So the Hungerless Games has sort of a dual focus, both permanently eradicating world hunger, which is a subset of the overall aim, which is a whole world. So that's all part of the strategy, and that's all part of the machinery of getting this whole thing started. So in terms of that overall context, so we have ideas and we have implementation in the real world. And then we have some kind of like, mediating platforms and sort of a middle layer that facilitate the dialectic between the two. Much of collective intelligence is in fact dedicated to this dialectic. Portions or sectors of the collective intelligence will be focused on global holistic modeling that we were talking about earlier, and that we talk about extensively elsewhere. But basically, the aim, or the aim of that is, of that whole evolution of global holistic modeling, the aim, not that we're ever going to achieve it, is essentially crystal ball-like capability of modeling, projecting, forecasting, so you can model out and optimize different scenarios on the computer before actually implementing them in the real world. So it gives you that sort of, numerical laboratory. And then in parallel with that, we have a living laboratory of development of what we call radical collective intelligence, which is one way of looking at this global collective intelligence. And so on radish.org to be precise, Radish Collective Intelligence is precisely that living laboratory where we put all this to practice. And we have ongoing forums in support of the community cafes. We have ongoing forums in support of Sato Hemp. We have ongoing forums in support of the development of CCC, the standard. Ongoing forums in support of global holistic modeling. So those forums are all ongoing on Radish for basically implementing the strategy that Radish is committed to, which is the Hungerless Games. Now, that's not to say that that's the only strategy it's going to support, but that's one that it's committed to at this point. And all the platforms and programs that make up that are part of the Hungerless Games, Community Cafe, CCC, Sato Hemp, Global Holistic Modeling, it's ICCI itself, because we want for the Hungerless Games and all the popularity and attention that will draw, we want that to support ICCI. We want that to be part of, so all this works together. It's like this intricate machinery right? This complex virtuous cycle where all these things support each other in a way that all of them can grow. Initially towards the milestone of permanently eradicating world hunger. And as people see just how feasible that is, and that there's actually a plan and a program and it's being implemented and executed on to eradicate world hunger, but not only to do that, but to do it holistically, as we talk about in other videos. In terms of all this machinery, you can say, well, look, does it have to be that complicated? Do you have to have, a global standard for creating, for bifurcating the global economy into the old mode of production and economy of hoarding and the new mode of production and economy of sharing, or a compassionate economy? Do you have to have that? Do you have to have, a clothing company that's putting compassion in fashion, Sato Hemp, led by the Takuya Sato, the Hemperor of Japan? So you have the Hemperor of Japan, Mr. Takuya Sato, bearer of the oldest, longest legacy of hemp in the world, long older than my legacy, through my great-grandfather, Diego Pellicer, who was the largest grower of hemp in the world in the Victorian era. Well, the Sato legacy goes much, centuries before that. And so Sato hemp, in fact, this is a really interesting point that's part of the whole. We don't have to wait for the global holistic modeling to do some obvious, lateral shifts in the global economy starting right now. One of those obvious lateral shifts is from cotton to hemp, and we talk about that extensively elsewhere. Just look at hemp or cotton. They are just enormous. Jaw-dropping, literally jaw-dropping. So definitely check out the facts on that. But you see, that's a shift that we can do where, as a compassionate company, Sato Hemp is contributing all of its profits to ending hunger. That helps people. But with also shifting from cotton to hemp, we're also benefiting the planet. So this provides like a living example that people can wear. This is part of putting compassion in fashion. And that'll help, of course, drive more membership in ICCI, more membership in Radish, more membership in many different collective intelligence communities that are all coming together in this federation. So we've talked about some of these, different fundamental elements to make all this work, to go from grand vision, grand idea to actual implementation in reality in the real world. There's this notion that we have, excuse me. Okay, there's this notion that we have that of irreducible complexity, that yes, we can simplify all of this, but only to a point. There's a point beyond which you cannot simplify it any further, or you lose vital, functionality of this. Again, what is the it? What is the grand machine of all these of all this complexity? It is the overall effort to save humanity and the planet through development and implementation of collective intelligence, a global collective intelligence, period. So that is that's the it. That's the machinery that we want to get started here. And what we're talking about are the different sort of irreducibly complex components. I'm not actually stating that the list that we're introducing here constitutes an irreducibly complex set, or a set that is irreducibly complex. Think like the minimum number of vectors that span a vector space, a kernel or whatever you call that fundamental set. Anyway, that's the idea here, is that we have this. There is this irreducibly complex set, and the Hungerless Games and community cafes and Sato Hemp and all that. These are not inevitable, manifestations of each of those components, vital components. They're simply examples of such vital components that we happen to be implementing in the real world. So we're both doing the theory and doing the implementation at the same time, and connecting the two through conversations such as this one. and many others. So through trial and error, through experimentation, through testing, through evolution, and through developing the collective intelligence and turning that power of collective intelligence on all of this, by doing that, we actually believe that's probably the best training ground for collective intelligence itself. I mean, how smart is it going to grow to be? It's going to be as smart as the hardest problems that you throw at it. So collective intelligence today has been applied at some pretty hard problems, but nothing like what we're talking about. Nothing like holistically solving all the world's problems, which we believe, as we state on the homepage of ICCI, we believe that is the only way to solve the world's problems, is to solve all of them holistically. This is kind of the grand meta strategy, if you will, of how of what we're setting out to accomplish. ICCI's place within it all, to talk about that explicitly, is sort of like the grand sort of think tank or community or federation, right? Where, you know, there are relationships with all the different collective intelligences, but it's not, you know, command and control, right? Each one is an independent, you know, they do their own thing. But at the same time, there is a definite stated intention and a lot of efforts towards unification, towards unity, creating this global collective intelligence. So there's an interesting dichotomy there between independence of the different collective intelligence communities and interdependence, you know, and, you know, union and merging and forming. And that's just one of the fundamental, you know, yin yangs of our time, is, you know, separation versus unity. And I point to some of the brilliant things Michael mentioned earlier in this video. One or two other things that I may not have mentioned yet is, oh yeah, that's right. Excuse me. All right. There's two other things that actually three other things I want to talk about that we're putting out there as part of the whole. One is, so the Hungerless Games is a strategy, but we can also create it as an actual game, like one of these massive multiplayer games called the Hungerless Games, with the objective of permanently eradicating world hunger, as we talk about extensively elsewhere. So you can imagine teams all around the world coming together to collaborate through the Hungerless Games and co-create the solutions to world hunger. The solutions, plural, all the platforms, all the programs, things like Community Cafe. And in fact, a whole bunch of the Hungerless Games can be all about developing, co-creating the community cafes, right? And because each one's going to be different in different countries, in different regions, different cultures, they're going to be different cuisines. And of course, tie it all in with the regenerative agricultural networks that we talk about extensively elsewhere. And you have a really fun game to play, and a really enriching game to play. And the beautiful thing is, it's going to unify humanity, all of humanity, not just the collective intelligences, but, you know, it basically just opens up the gates, throws them open wide, the gates to the castle, to the kingdom, and says, people, come on in, right? Here's where it's happening. And then it happens online, and then it increasingly happens in community cafes around the world, which not only feed people, but also create community, and therefore become the heart of this even larger concept called compassionate communities, headed by Crystal and Rodriguez. Community cafes are headed by my brother, Eric Miller. And, but both of them working together symbiotically, together with the other components of this grand machine of irreducible complexity, including CCC, Sato Hemp, Compassion in Fashion. And yet another major component of this whole thing is a communication medium that communicates the big picture and the strategy and what we're doing and who we are and progress, that communicates that to the whole world on a weekly basis, kind of a weekly checkpoint that people can tap into. And we figure the best way to do that most effectively is through a weekly documentary television series that we're going to be launching called The Emperor's New Clothes, led by none other than the emperor himself, Emperor Sato, the emperor of Japan. And because Sato Hemp is the first company to step out there and put compassion in fashion. And so all these people are going to be wearing Sato Hemp. It's going to be the coolest thing. We're going to do like a Kickstarter campaign, you know, sell who knows how many, you know, of the you know, founders edition of Sato Hemp shirts, because these people who throw down and put their money where their mouth is and you know, buy Sato Hemp, they are founders. They are founders of the compassionate economy. And so they're going to be wearing these really cool, comfortable, durable Sato Hemp clothing, and it'll say there on, you know, somewhere around there, you know, just like this, like a whole bunch of words and stuff, I think, in different parts of the shirt. Or wait, maybe it's in the sleeves. Anyway, oh, here we go, down here. There's all these different like words and stuff. Anyway, you can imagine the words compassion in fashion. Compassion in fashion. We're putting compassion in fashion, Sato. And then it becomes a conversation piece and it draws people in. So Sato Hemp is a key part of it. The Emperor's New Clothes becomes just this amazing weekly, hugely entertaining and engaging, you know, documentary television series. Each one, it's like a real life documentary. We're documenting what's actually happening in the coevolution of all of these different platforms and programs that make up the grand machine. One other thing that's a little bit technical, but I wanted to mention it anyway, is another platform which is called the Whole World Operating System. And that is a technical, you know, numerical computer modeling based operating system, which keeps track of all of the inputs and outputs of carbon and water through the different phases. So for example, when a coal burning power plant burns a ton of coal and it releases so many tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, that is measured and tracked and recorded, and you know, all that is tracked in a universal whole world operating system. And then on top of that whole world operating system, which both keeps track of real world data, but it also provides a blank slate for simulations from this point forward into the future, you can use that simulator part of the whole world operating system to build on top of it specific models, climate models, economic models, population models, public policy models, you know, blah, 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 all this stuff. And you can cobble together both models that you've created and models that other people have created, open source style. And you can take these different modules, which each of which are model, you know, like you have one model for the, you know, hydrologic cycle, and that gets applied all over the world in different ways in terms of evaporation and condensation and rainfall and all that, combined with a global climate model of pressures and temperatures and all this stuff. Anyway, cobble together the different modules of the different models, but all on a common substrate, which is the whole world operating system, the simulation part of it, so that you can simulate the coevolution of the economy, the climate, sea level, population, all this stuff. And you know, you can model essentially different possible trajectories of planet Earth. Now, garbage in, garbage out, the output's only is going to be as good as the models themselves. But again, we're going to be applying collective intelligence to all this, not just the collective intelligences that we've seen up till now, but a whole new global collective intelligence, which will enable us to create amazing models, open source style. And we've got so much to learn, and thank to the Linux community that has pioneered the modularity. They modularize it so that different people and different teams and different groups can be working on different modules at the same time without interrupting or interfering with each other's work. The opposite being spaghetti code that just gets all over the place and there's just no end to all the interlinkages. So we need to learn as much as we can from Linux for modularizing both the whole world operating system itself and all the models that can be built on top of it, the integration of those models for doing simulations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a whole big piece, whole world operating system and the global holistic modeling, which is the sum total of all these models. Those two work together symbiotically. So I've hit on on a lot of the main kind of pieces or, gears or components in this irreducibly complex virtuous cycle to get the whole thing running, from the communication piece to the fashion piece to the economic model, to the global modeling, including economic modeling. And by the way, that global modeling combined with economic modeling is what will ultimately give rise to the global standards of CCC, Certified Compassionate Companies, so that when you're buying CCC, you're buying products and services which are consistent with a path that's actually been mapped out for how to get to the telos of a whole world. First stop, permanent eradication of world hunger. Final destination, a whole world. The holistic solution of all the world's problems to the extent that they can be solved via the optimal pathway. Once we identify the optimal pathway, we follow it. How do you follow it? You buy CCC. Buy CCC and live your life. It's like that simple, right? But it's also that irreducibly complex. So again, the vision and mission of ICCI is all of this that we've talked about on this video today. And, ICCI it's both a think tank, but it's also a magnet to pull people together. And all these videos that we're doing are part of that magnet to invite everyone to come join. So everyone in the world is invited to apply to be a member of ICCI. For that matter, everyone in the world is invited to apply to be a member of Radish. Those are two separate organizations. And other collective intelligences will have to put out their own shingle, but we'll help them do that here on ICCI, in terms of saying, hey, if you want to join, like the MIT Climate Collab, that's open to anyone to join. Anyone with an email address can join the MIT Climate Collab, collective intelligence, and work on climate change. So that's a huge part of the federation, right? So we need the MIT Climate Collab. And I've just begun communicating with some of their folks. We also need the Azimuth Forum, the Azimuth Project, and I've begun communicating with them. So we need to bring all these together, but we need your help in also helping to herd all these cats, because there's a lot of them out there, and I can't do it alone. So please apply to be a member of ICCI, and you can specify there. And if you're interested in volunteering and helping with this whole effort, or you can also just hang out and watch, and let everyone embrace this or not at their own pace. But everyone's invited, and that's kind of it. So please keep watching. Thank you for watching. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. And also I welcome everyone's questions and comments. Just feel free to just type them right into the comment section of this very YouTube video. Go to the YouTube page itself of this video. Like, you click down below where it says, watch this video on YouTube. Go there and just feel free to type in your questions or comments. I think you have to be signed in via your Google account or whatever. So anyway, please join the conversation. And you can do that without being a member of ICCI. So I'm inviting you to both. I'm inviting you to apply to be a member of ICCI, and I'm also inviting you to just join in the conversation as you are right now. Thank you all so much. Thank you.